everybody, welcome back to Knitting Butterflies. This is Emily. Today is Friday, December 18th, 2015. It is Star Wars Day. The movie came out at midnight last night. I haven't gone to see it yet. We're trying to figure out when we're going to go see it, and I'm so mad at myself that we don't have that figured out yet because everybody says that it was amazing and I want to go see it so badly. So thanks for joining me today. I realized that I only have like a 45-minute window now before my kids get home from school, and then I couldn't record a podcast after they got home for Christmas break because a bunch of the stuff I've been knitting is for them. And so this is kind of my last opportunity before I would be able to do that. So if you are new to Knitting Butterflies, thank you so much for joining me. If you are a returning listener, just a reminder that this is an audio and a visual podcast now. So if you are listening, I had a lot of really good feedback that I had a lot of audio listeners that enjoyed the audio podcast, but then they also thought, maybe I'll watch it too. And I really enjoy doing the video podcast because I like to show you guys what I've been working on. And we work really hard on our stuff, and I personally love listening to audio podcasts when I'm in the car, when I'm doing chores, but I also really love the video aspect of it where I can see your work. And there have definitely been a ton of projects that I've knit because I've seen them on video podcasts. So the way to watch the video podcast, I only upload it to YouTube. I don't upload the actual video to iTunes because it's very expensive to do that from my podcast server. And so what I do is I only upload it to YouTube, so you can subscribe via YouTube, or you can also look in the show notes of the audio podcast, and the video is in the show notes. It's embedded in there. So that's the administrative stuff that I have for you guys today. I have some knitting. I have a ton of knitting to show you guys, and then I don't have a photography segment for you today. Just because I kind of had to throw this together last minute because my kids are coming home. But we are going to have a book review for you later that we're going to do after the kids come home today because we're super excited about it and it's fantastic. And they have not been able to put this book down, especially my 9-year-old. So, and it's a knitting book, which is even better. So anyway, we might as well go ahead and get started. So what I'm wearing today, I am wearing my Virgie Clay shawl. This is a design by Sarah Stevens of the Fiber by Design podcast and O Loops Yarn Company. And I probably should show you the whole thing, except for I have 3 ends that I actually still have to weave in. But I love this shawl. I knit this on the road to Michigan, and when I was in Michigan this fall with my family, look how big it is. It's just humongous. I want to say it's about 8 feet wide, about 7 feet wide, and then it's about a foot, maybe a foot and a half deep. But it's created with a bunch of short rows, and I knit mine out of Fiber Story Fave Sock, and there's 4 different colors. The only one I remember is Milo, which is a blue variegated that I have, but I used a really nice olive green and then a blue purple color, and then Milo, which is a variegated blue with pops of yellow and purple and green in it, and then a really beautiful goldenrod color. And so I love all of these so much, and I bought this yarn at Stitches Midwest, which was exciting. Oh, I put it on backwards. But it was total potato chip knitting. I really enjoyed knitting it, and I wanted to wear it because I wanted to show it to you guys since I hadn't talked about it on the podcast yet. But I don't wear it over my shoulders, really. I kind of have been just taking it's an asymmetrical saw, so one side is much deeper, and then it just gets narrower and narrower as it goes. So I like to take the long and narrow side and put that over my shoulder first, and then I really like the depth of this shawl, so then I'll just take the rest of it and fling it over my shoulder, So, but if you ever want to see a good video on how to style shawls, you should definitely check out Danny from One Twisted Tree. She has a whole video on how to style your shawl. So that is the Virgie Clay shawl by Sarah Stevens, and I love it so much. But I have a ton of knitting that I wanted to show you guys. So I usually don't knit a whole bunch of Christmas gifts. I might knit 1, maybe 2, because I want to knit things that bring me joy and don't stress me out. And especially this year, I didn't want to be stressed out at all. But the projects that I ended up knitting have been so much fun and such a blast to work on. And so I already showed you two of them, and one of them has its ends woven in already. But the Star Wars hats are kind of what got me started on a Christmas knitting kick this year. And this is the Force Awakens hat by Hannah L. This is a free pattern on Ravelry. And I knit mine out of Brown Sheep Company Nature Spun Sport, which is really soft, and it has a tiny bit of tooth, but it's still really soft. It knits up in color work just beautifully, and I knit my son's in gray and black and white, and then I knit my daughter's in red and black and white because her favorite color is red, and that's just what I had on hand. And so I knit those two already, and then I decided to knit my best friend, her son, and her daughter hats as well. Our kids have grown up together since they were babies, and so I wanted to knit them some hats as well. So I did another one, and her kids' hats are out of Cascade Superwash Sport. And I decided to do that because you never know when you send knitwear off to other people whether they're going to wash them in the washing machine or not, and the brown sheep will felt if it goes in the washing machine. So the Cascade will not felt, but I knit her son's hat. They didn't have white. I went to the Loopy U and they were out of, I don't know if they carry white in Cascade or not, in the Superwash Sport. I do know they carried in the other lines, but I don't know about Superwash Sport. So I just did light gray and black and then a teal color for his, and then I did light gray and black and red for her daughter. So I have done a total of 4 of these hats now, and I can take off my ponytail and show you how these fit. I really love these hats so much. Oh, it's so warm and comfortable, and it just fits really nicely. I didn't do any sizing changes except for some reason I had a weird stitch count happen with my friend's daughter's hat. I don't know how I ended up 8 stitches short when it came time to do the Stormtroopers, but if you're not familiar with the pattern, for the audio listeners, it's knit from the bottom up, and it's a stranded colorwork hat where you knit TIE fighters and then the words The Force Awakens, and then you knit Stormtroopers and lightsabers above that, and then you do the decreases. And so when I got to the Stormtroopers, I was 8 stitches short on the stitch count, and I don't really know how that happened, so I just took out 8 stitches from the chart and made it work. So this hat is a tiny bit smaller, a bit differently. 8 stitches makes a big difference apparently. But they're super warm and they're very comfortable. The brim is really short on these hats, but I think it's because the body of the hat will still go over your ears. So you still have double layer over your ears. And I knit these, when I knit my friend's hats, I decided to start with a tubular cast on instead of a regular cast on. I just really like how the tubular cast on looks. And how much it stretches. And then I did 1x1 rib on size 4s for both of her hats. And then I went up to 6s for the body. So like I mentioned before, I tend to think that for my gauge, these would look a little bit better on 5s, but the 6s are just fine. So I'm really, really happy with how they turned out. And I was totally addicted to knitting them. I have plans to knit. I want to use the stitch counts of this hat and the construction of the decreases. And I found a pattern that is, it's a Lopi pattern. It's a free pattern. I don't have the name of it off the top of my head. I feel bad that I don't have it. I just realized it. But my friend's other son, he does love horses. He totally wanted to knit something with horses on it. And so I'm going to use the base of the Star Wars hat, the stitch counts and everything, and then I'm going to chart up a pattern. This is a free pattern by Lopi that Lopi put out, and it is a really beautiful sweater with horses on it. And Corey, who is iRock Knits, was knitting that sweater, and so I decided to track down the pattern. Like I said, it's a free pattern, and chart out the horses onto Star Wars hat for him. So I have plans to do that in some more Cascade Superwash Sport in this really pretty green color. All my stuff is tangled up in my bag, but I have this really pretty green color, and then the leftovers of the stuff from the Star Wars hat. So I had a lot of people ask me how much yardage I used to make the Star Wars hat. I only used 50-gram skeins, and out of one 50-gram skein, I was able to get all of the gray and all of the black for 2 hats. And then I still had this much left over of each one of those. So I had about, I don't know, 20 grams, 25 grams left over of both the gray and the black after knitting 2 hats. Sorry, my needles are clinking all over the place. But so I'd say about 20. So I used about 70, or sorry, not even. Let me think. Let me reword this. So I used about 2/3 of the 50-gram skein. That's what I meant to say. I used about 2/3 of the 50-gram skein to get the black for 2 hats and the gray for 2 hats. And then I used about half of the 50-gram skein for the color work. And so you can probably pretty easily get 2 matching hats if you did what am I trying to say? So if I had made 2 red hats, like 2 red, black, and gray hats, I would have probably used up all of the red and then still have some of the gray and the black left over. So anyway, that's how much yardage I use. I will weigh my yarn and let you know for sure the exact yardage once I figure that out. So that is all the Star Wars hats. And then I knit a couple hats for, here, I'll show you these first. So I knit a hat for my younger daughter who is 4, and I knit this hat. This is out of Manos de Uruguay Maxima in the Aurora Borealis colorway, which is bright pinks and greens and blues and turquoise and purple and all the different colors that you could want, and a little bit of white. And it's a heavily variegated skein. It's so pretty, and I knit the classic cuffed cap. I was wrong. I thought it was basic rimmed hat. It's the classic cuffed hat by Pearl Soho. So I just did the brim in the natural color, and then I did the top of her hat in the Aurora Borealis and woven the ends, and that one is done except for a giant pom-pom on the top. And then I also knit the opposite for my niece. So hers has the Aurora Borealis on the brim and then the natural on the body of the hat. And so I decided to do both of those, and then I'm going to use the leftover yarn from both of those and make great big pom-poms to go on the top. So those were super simple. They were very easy. They knit up really quickly, and just stockinette. Stockinette is my thing right now. I really am enjoying just knitting stockinette projects, and they were fun. And then my son needed a hat, of course, my youngest son. And so I haven't woven in the ends on this one yet, but this is knit out of Malabrigo Rasta, which is a super bulky yarn. They carry it as a loopy U, which is where I bought it. And I bought the natural color and then a really beautiful tonal blue color. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, and I apologize. But so I knit his hat, and I just made up the hat. So I just did 40 stitches around because it's super bulky. I had to knit this on size 15, which hurt my hands so bad, but I'm glad that I did it. So I just did a 1x1 rib for the brim, and then I switched over to stockinette for the top and knit his hat. So that one is done. And then I had to knit a coordinating one for my nephew. So his has the blue on the brim and the natural for the top, and then they both need ends woven in and pom-poms as well. So each of these I got done in about 2.5 hours. It was an evening's worth of knitting on both of them. So they knit up super quickly, and they were fun. So that is all of those. And then I also I finished all the beer koozies, which is really exciting. So I knit a total of 7 beer koozies for my family. And my husband knew that I was knitting these, and he knew that I was knitting one of them for him. And it was so funny. This is actually his. This is Dream in Color Smooshy yarn in the Torchwood colorway, which is just a nice brownish gray. simple color. And he had gotten out a can last night and was drinking it, and he was like, "Is my beer koozie done yet? Because that sounds really awesome." And we decided it's one of those things that if you don't know about them, you don't miss them. But then once you know about it, you want to use it every single time you use a bottle or a can. So um, so so his is done, and then I finished mine. The ends are not woven in on, no, the ends are woven in on this one. I just haven't snipped it yet. So mine is Dream and Color Smooshie in the Beach Fog colorway, and these together made my View from the Charles shawl, which I will show you next time. And then I knit the rest of them out of the, I have, this one is 93 Diagon Alley by One Twisted Tree. This was the first one that I did, and it's for my sister. And then I knit the rest of these out of the colors that were left over from my Virgie clay. So how fun is that? So here's I have the green for my brother-in-law and the yellow for my mom. And, oh, this is inside out because I was weaving in the ends. And I have the Milo for my dad. And then the purple for my other sister. This is the garter bottom beer cozy, I think is what it's called. And I really like these because they have the bottoms on the beer cozy, and so your drink doesn't slip out the bottom of it, but it's also a good enough gauge and pattern that it doesn't create a wobbly fabric at all, and so your drink doesn't fall over. So it's like a coaster and a cozy all in one project, and I really, really loved knitting them. These took about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at most per cozy. So they went very quickly. I just have to snip the ends that I haven't snipped yet. I have woven in about half of them, and then I just have to weave in the rest of them, and then those are all done as well. So 7 beer cozies. We did decide that these are all going to go live at my mom and dad's house for all of us adults when we have dinner together, because we have dinner together twice a week. And so these are going to go live at my mom and dad's house, and then I'm going to be knitting up even more that will live at our house. So those are completely done. I think that is actually all of the knitting that I have been doing. I have been working a little bit on my my Water and Stone cardigan out of One Twisted Tree in Hinky Punk, but not enough to really show you. I think I've gotten like 10 rows done more on the body. So I'll save that one for next time. But that's pretty much all my knitting right now. So I've also not been doing a ton of spinning, just a little bit, but again, not enough to really show you, unfortunately. I'm spinning some Into the World fiber that was gifted to me by the lovely Lori. So anyway, I think that's actually it that I have to show you. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and my kids are on their way home from school, and I will talk to you in a little bit. Okay, so 4 events that we have coming up. We have several of them, in fact. Let me just pull them up on my phone real quick just to make sure that I don't miss that. Okay, so there are several events that are coming up that I'm going to be at. So there are a lot of opportunities to touch base with me. I would love to meet you guys. So all of these, there's a meetup of some kind or some way that we can get together. I wanted to let you know, I had talked on the Ravelry board about maybe doing a camping meetup or a camping something. I don't really see that happening right now just because I don't know enough about the camping in the area that we can actually reserve. And a few people mentioned, maybe we could do it in a place where some people can tent camp or camper camp, and then some of us can do cabins and things. Possibly next year. That's what I'd like to say, is possibly next year, because I need to get to know this area a little bit better before I can organize something that big. So these are the events that are coming up, and I am super excited about them. So the first one is Knit Nosh. This is with Becky from the Knit Actually podcast. She's local to me, and it is January 23rd at 12:30, or from 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. at the Samples World Bistro in Longmont, Colorado. The cost to attend this event is $50, and that includes a 4-course meal, sampling of 4 different wines, and then yarn sampling from Bijou Basin, Scandalous, Nerd, and MJ Yarns. I made a mistake and said Sleep Season last time. It's MJ Yarns, who I've also met Jonathan and worked with him, and he's awesome. So it should be a really fun event. If you want to sign up for this event, you need to go to knitnosh, KNITKNOSH.com, and then you can buy your ticket there. So it should be pretty fun. After that is Stitches West. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so excited for Stitches West. This is February 18th through 21st at the Santa Clara Convention Center in California. I will be there all the days that they are there. There's a podcaster meetup, and I'm planning on being at that as well. It should be a ton of fun. And if you happen to see me anywhere, and I'll post Instagrams of what I'm wearing and things like that, so that if you happen to see me, come up and say hi anytime. It doesn't have to be at the podcaster meetup, because I'm a hugger. I'm totally a hugger. I'm going to have buttons for you guys. And I would just love to meet you. So if you see me at any of these things, please, please, please come up and say hi. After that comes the Interweave Yarn Fest, which is March 31st through April 3rd. I'm thinking if I go, it's going to be this Saturday. My lovely friend Danny is coming to visit me that weekend, and so we are super excited, and I need to talk to her about possibly doing maybe a meetup dinner or something, because it's also my birthday that weekend, and I thought that'd be fun. I thought that might be a fun birthday celebration. So keep your ears to the ground, watch out on the Ravelry board to see about that information coming up. But that's a really great event. It's the second year that they'll have done it this year, and the vendors are awesome. There's a ton of really great people there. And I didn't know a lot of them very well last year, and I will this year. And so I think it's going to be a really great event. And then after that comes Zombie Knitpocalypse, which is June 1st through 5th. Registration for this is already closed, but if you're going, I can't wait to meet you. It's in Rochester, Minnesota, and it's going to be an absolute blast. I keep checking the Zombie Knitpocalypse excitement thread because I can hardly wait. I want to go so badly and get to know all of you, and there are so many of you that I have been talking to on Instagram and things for the last 2.5 years, and now I finally get to meet you in person. So yay for that. After that, Rhinebeck. I'm going to Rhinebeck this year, you guys, and it's actually set for sure this year. The room is already booked, so that's going to be awesome too. So I'll have more information about that and the meetup of that and everything for you. Obviously not now, because it's not even 2016, and that's in October, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So that is all the events that we have coming up. Don't forget the Estes Park Wool Market is in June as well. I probably won't be at that event because it's the weekend after Zombie Knitpocalypse, and my family deserves to have at least some of my time with them. So, but that is in June as well. So I think that'll wrap it up for the events. Like I said, I don't have a photography segment, but coming up next is a review for my kids, and then I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. So I will talk to you soon. Hey everybody, welcome back. This part of the podcast is actually being recorded a couple weeks after the rest of the episode was recorded. We've been on Christmas break, and I have been trying to get my kids to sit down and talk about what they think about the new Susan B. Anderson book, and they were super excited about reviewing it with me for about 10 minutes, and then by the time we got everything set up, they didn't want to do it anymore, and we've just had such a crazy break, and they have not wanted to do it. So we're in a new room. We're in my craft room, which I will show you all around some other time, not today. But this is where I'm hoping to record all of my future podcasts, which is really exciting for me. I feel like it's nice and it's bright. It will look brighter once I get actual video lighting set up. But in the meantime, I hope that you enjoy kind of the view of my craft room. So you might as well go ahead and dive back into the review. So this is the Kids Knitting Workshop by Susan B. Anderson. It retails for $17.95 US. I bought this on Amazon. I pre-ordered it, and it arrived at my doorstep the day the book was released. The paper copy was released. So the front says, the easiest and most effective way to learn to knit, 17 cool products kids will love to make. Susan B. Anderson, first of all, is like a knitting, what's the word I'm looking for? Icon? I don't want to say like a knitting goddess, but like that. I adore her. So, so I was really excited when this book came out because I have kids who like to knit. And so I was wondering what they would think about this book. Um, I'll tell you kind of the story about what their reaction was to the book, and then I'll go into the actual content. So, like I said, this showed up on our front doorstep the day it came out, which was the last day of school for them. And then I looked through it a little bit, and then when they came home, I just went ahead and gave it to them. I had thought it might be a Christmas present, but I decided I didn't want it to be a Christmas present. I wanted it to just be theirs. So I gave it to them and I said, "Look what came in the mail for you." And they were like, "What is this?" And I told them, I said, it's a learn to knit book. They both got so excited and they immediately wanted to start making stuff. And so they sat down and they poured through it and they were reading all about it and picking out what projects they wanted to make. And um, they were just so excited about this book. My 9-year-old ended up taking this book to bed with him, and he read the entire book cover to cover that night. So at night, he goes to bed at 8:30, and then he's allowed to stay up and read. And since he didn't have school the next day, I didn't tell him lights out, and he ended up reading the entire thing front to back in one night. So he was really engaged in the content. Um, they did kind of start projects. I was really excited because the 9-year-old learned how to cast on from the book. And casting on was something that I had kind of always told him, oh, it's too hard. Let's just get you knitting first. And he was actually really excited about it and cast on a project by himself. I gave him some circular needles and some yarn, and he cast on a project all by himself. And then his sister wanted to knit too, so he cast on a project for her as well, because she couldn't quite get the mechanics of the movement of your hands. But that was exciting because I didn't really have to do it, and he learned how to do it by himself in the book. So I would say this isn't necessarily a book that is only for kids. This book has a lot of really, really good material for anybody who wants to learn to knit. I think the projects are a little bit more child friendly, and some of the content in the very beginning is geared toward teaching kids to knit. So um, it talks about teaching people how to knit in the round, which I actually really, really like to do. That's how I taught both of my kids to knit when I originally taught them a while ago, because um, then they could just go round and round and round, and it wasn't really about finishing rows. It was knit for as long as you want to knit. And if you end, like, we would put a little marker where they would start so that they could see how far they had made it that day. But we didn't worry about counting rows or things like that. And then they can make something like a hat, which is, it's, it doesn't take nearly as long as a scarf. I don't know any kids, my children's age anyway, who have the patience to knit like an entire scarf. But um, it talks about, like, the smaller the hands, the smaller the materials need to be. So like, you don't want to give a 7-year-old size 15 needles and bulky yarn to start, because that's going to be hard for them. That's hard for me to work with my hands, and I've been knitting a long time. So she gives a lot of really good tips for teaching children to knit. And then she starts with the basics. She starts with knitting a basic hat, and um, the photography in this is just beautiful. Of course, I always love to look at photography, but the photography in this book is really beautiful. It's a lot of good close-up shots. It's a lot of really sweet shots. You can immediately see what the focus is. There's not weird lighting or anything like that. Um, the book itself is spiral bound, I forgot to mention. So I really, really like that in my resource books. I have other books like Ann Budd's Handy Book of Top-Down Sweaters and a knit dictionary and things like that. And they're all spiral bound. So I feel like resource books should definitely be spiral bound. I don't really care so much if pattern books are or not, but it talks about everything you would want to know about knitting and yarn, and how does yarn come when you buy it? Like, what's the difference between a ball that is already ready to pull through the middle versus a skein that you have to wind on the, or a hank, I'm sorry, I used the wrong terminology, a hank that you have to wind on a ball winder. What do the different things on your yarn label mean? What are the actual thicknesses of the yarn? How does that translate into your project? How do you wind a ball by hand? What are different kinds of needles? Like, she talks a lot about gauge, and my son was so excited about gauge. It was funny because one of the projects that they wanted to knit right away, and I'll show you in a minute, it's the stripy scarf. and it's like a stripy tube scarf, I think is what it's called. And I'll see if I can find it while I'm talking to you. But they wanted to knit that right away, and the pattern calls for bulky weight yarn. And he looked at that. Here's the scarf on the model with the cute hat with the pom-poms. You can make either one, and it's just the same project. It's just made a little bit differently. So they saw that, and he goes, well, do you have any bulky weight yarn, Mom? And I said, not really, because I don't stock up on bulky weight yarn. And I said, but I have a lot of worsted weight yarn. And he goes, oh, worsted is a little bit smaller. So if I use worsted yarn, that will make my gauge smaller. And he like he's very engineering mindset. And then my 7-year-old's like, hooray, colors, because she's my artist. So she doesn't care about gauge and things like that. But my 9-year-old really, really cares about that. So he wanted to make sure that the stripy tube scarf would be the same width as the one in the picture. And we talked a lot about the math and how gauge works and things. That's just his thing. He was so excited about it. And so we talked about how he might want to cast on a few more stitches because it's worsted weight yarn instead of bulky yarn to make it the correct circumference and things like that. So, and yes, we do use the word circumference in our house with the 9-year-old. So anyway, back to the actual content of the book. There's really cute projects in here. There's, like I said, there's a little hat, and it talks about you can donate it to charity like a shelter or a school or a hospital or things like that. And she teaches you the little tube and then how to do like the decreases. Does she do the decreases in this part? No, on this project she doesn't do decreases, but she does do that later. So she teaches you how to knit the tube and then how to pull it tight and make that cute little thing, and then talking about making a pom-pom. And my kids were so excited about making pom-poms. And then if you watch Instagram later, you know that I found a pom-pom maker. I bought a pom-pom maker, and they've been making pom-poms like crazy. So they were really excited about this entire project. It talks about finding off. This book talks about how to fix your mistakes, like if you drop a stitch or things like that. It helps you walk through it, and oh my goodness, there's just so much I could say. So there's a cowl in here. There's the stripy tube scarf on the model by itself. That was the picture they got. I'm really excited. I want to let's see if I can find the picture of the fox blanket. So like I said, there's a whole section on the fox blanket. My son was really into the scarf. My daughter was really into the stuffed animals. So there's like owls and kitties, and there's like a fox pillow, and she really wants to someday make the fox pillow. There's these really cute little hand puppets. Oh my gosh, just look how cute this is. She just about died when she saw those puppets. Oh, she was so excited. So I feel like there were a lot of projects that were easy enough that kind of no matter what personality your child is, like I said, I have the engineering child and I have the artist child. They both could find projects that they really identified with making. And so my daughter was big into the animals and the snowman and things. My son was big into the hats and the scarves and things like that. The stuff that's a little bit more utilitarian, which is very much how they operate. I can't find this fox pillow in here. I suppose that's what a table of contents is for. But anyway, everything in here is just really adorable. Susan did a fantastic job. Like I said, my kids were not excited to do the podcast, but they really do love this book. And so, and it was funny because my kids were off for like 16 days or something crazy like that. Even longer than that for a Christmas break. And the first day I asked my son, I said, what do you want to do this break? And he was like, stay at home and knit the whole break. Of course that didn't happen, but it warmed my heart that was what he said he wanted to do. So if you're looking at teaching somebody to knit, this is a really great resource. If you have children who, I would say this is a great resource for the child who is a good independent learner, and it's a good supplement to children who need assistance. The diagrams are really beautiful. The wording is very easy to understand. And I feel like Susan did an awesome job. So check that out. And I will talk to you very soon. I hope to be recording another episode in the next day or two with all of the Christmas stuff. So I will talk to you soon. Bye.